Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast episode of Let's Chat About Death. I have with me, or over the other side of the table, a very special person, and her name is Annie. Let's put our hands together for Annie. No. Oh, look. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. There you go. Cut it short.
Thank you, everybody. Hello.
So today we're just going to talk about generalised topics. We get a lot of people sort of asking, well, I don't say silly questions, but questions about our industry, either on our lives or through Facebook. And for those that have never heard Annie before, Annie is our new funeral director's assistant. So we've welcomed her to the Bremba team. And she has a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience and bits and pieces around in her. How many years are you? 23, what are you? 20?
Yeah, 23 and a bit.
23 and a bit. So she's been around the block a few times in regards to experience and things. So I hope that this episode's going to be quite exciting. So one of the questions that we do get asked, and it always either pops up at a party or a social event, is, don't you find your job is very emotional, or do you find that your job is very depressing? Because we're dealing with grief every day. Do you get asked that?
I actually got asked this question at the housewarming I threw on the weekend.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And yeah. So did they just go, oh, don't you find it depressing? Or
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think people's first sort of thought or first sort of question that they ask is about how sad it is. Oh, that's a really sad job to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously there's a lot of really heavy things that we experience and a lot of very sad things that we experience, but I think that for me, my love of my job sort of outweighs those.
Yeah.
But I've also got a really good support system here at work and also at home.
I think support is a very, very big thing, because if you'll probably hear me during my podcast saying, the public's view or community's view against funeral directors' view. Because when you're on the outside, what you think the job entails or what we do is totally different when you're inside. The other thing is everyone thinks we're NCIS, everything's sort of crystal, stainless steel, everything's there, we've got the drawers, we've got everything, and, everyone's wearing white pants, and the classic film thing. Not saying that what we do is dirty in any way, but, there's a lot behind the scenes that we do.
I think that it's a lot less clinical than people think, especially back of house. It's not as doctor's office as people imagine.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you answer this person? You just
pretty much exactly what I said. Yeah. Yeah, I think that especially when they ask these questions, they do have a preconceived idea of what it's like to work in the funeral industry. And I think that it's really good to let them know that it's not all, sad and gloom.
Yeah.
And that sometimes it is, it is a nice thing to do for somebody, and it is a nice job. Well, most of the time it is a nice thing to do.
I think, like you said, and once again, having that support there that from work-wise, but to go home to a partner that's supportive or a family member that's supportive, they're never truly going to understand what we do because they're not in it. Yeah. But if you describe it enough, hopefully, the classic one used to always be, when you go home or you're out with your friends, and people just go, oh, yeah, I get it, but they don't. Like, I don't know. Or, if we're really having a bad time and, people say, well, maybe you need to go and speak to someone professionally for it. But I've often put, well, if you go and talk to that person, unless they've had that experience, how can they help me? Because they don't understand it.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly
coming
right.
from that counselling background too, for me, it's like if I'm not used to a subject, how can I help that person if I've never researched it or experienced it?
Mm-hmm.
I can, how does it make you feel? The classic,
Yeah.
and this is what you can do moving forward. But on the other side, yeah, you can't really help me. All you can do is be there as that sound or that earpiece,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, the other one that we get asked, or I have been asked actually, even in job interviews, is, do you need to touch dead bodies? And it's like, yeah. I think that would be a given, that
You'd think so.
you would either be seeing them or you will be touching them.
I have a real issue with that question. My issue is, first of all, obviously.
Yeah.
Second of all, it almost has an underlying disgust to it.
Yeah.
They're not dirty. They're not
No.
disgusting. They're not going to make you sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. But see, even back, when I was in corporate days, and there used to be a receptionist, right? And they all needed to know what a deceased looked like. If there was a viewing and there was no other arranger or any other staff member there, that if they went and visited that person in that lying in state, that if something was a little bit awkward, that they could fix them up. Or, I guess if the temperature was different, in the chapel or in the viewing room against, and there might be a little bit of condensation or stuff like that they can, pat down. But I remember interviewing, she was a lovely, lovely lady, but just, not with us. It was a bit like sort of having a mosquito flying around the room and not quite sure where to land. But I found, I think it was even going for an arranger conductor position. And I said, so, there'll be times where you'll need to do this. Well, she got freaked out. It's like, well, what do you, don't I just go out and see the family and arrange it? I don't want to see them. It's like, well, you're not actually going to get the true feeling of what it is unless you're dealing with that person. So, like, you can learn the story, but seeing the person, you might go, oh yeah, you look like a happy fellow, or you look like a grumpy old man, or whatever it might be. Like, how can you do this without touching someone?
Yeah. How can you completely support a family without getting to know their loved one?
Yeah, exactly. And I think with what we do is we get that, we're there from the first transfer through to the prepping, to the placing someone in their coffin, to then on the day of the funeral, placing their lid on their coffin and bringing out their beautiful flowers, and then taking them for their last ride. Like, it's not just a matter of jumping in a hearse and just driving away. How my mind thinks is, if you're going down, you're taking this person for their last physical car ride, or you are the last person on this earth to see them. You are the last person to wash them, to comb their hair. Family at times don't get that opportunity because they don't want to see their loved one.
Yeah.
And it's because of, I've seen enough of Dad. It's okay. I'm at peace with it. But I think that's why, we are who we are, and how honoured are we to be able to do that? That's what I think.
Yeah,
anyway.
Absolutely agree.
So, yeah, not being able to touch someone is it's a bit weird. The other question that we do get often, or you would have heard it, people out there, you would have heard this, just put me in a cardboard box, or just put me in a pine box, and then, burn me. Now, I don't like that when someone says, "Oh, just burn me," or how long until she burns? It's like, no, 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 no. There's a word for that. That's just like, I don't love my loved one. But how long until that person is cremated? The other thing is too is with cardboard and pine. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's more affordable than the everyday." No, it's not. And I think society has that ability to be able to turn something like, yeah, it sounds cheap, sounds affordable, but it's not. In your experience, even with wicker, to a cardboard coffin that's wax lined, or but then the other side of that is that you can't store the body in that receptacle for 2 or 3 days, because you pick up the sides of that coffin, and you'll be you'll be leaving the loved one behind. So not always are the environmentally friendly the most useful or most affordable way of doing things. Have you, prior to coming to Bremba, did you have much experience with cardboard and wicker? And
We mostly used chipboard coffins.
yeah,
I think we had one wicker casket once,
Yeah.
and that was about a week before
Yeah.
I left. I hadn't experienced one in my entire time there.
yeah,
And that was an experience.
yeah.
I'm not reaching for a wicker
No.
wicker casket.
No. And I think it depends on where they're ordered from too. There's a lot that obviously a majority of them come from overseas, but it's their what do you say, their how they're made. They're meant to be natural, but a lot of the ones that come overseas have to be chemically treated.
Yep.
So it defeats the purpose of having a natural burial. I mean, even when it comes to a deceased, we'll just change to the natural burial side, because now that we're talking about this, it sort of always plays on my mind. Natural burial is meant to be nothing chemical, nothing metal, nothing that's not going to that isn't going to biodegrade. Try to keep everything as user friendly as possible. So, okay, you've got your coffin or your picnic basket, wicker basket. I can't get it away in my head of, all you want to do is bring out the cheese and dip,
Yep.
and the bottle of wine or something to go with it. But each to their own, I guess. So chemically treated coffin or casket. The hessian or calico that they provide has been bleached or has some form of treatment in that. How does it combine? There's got to be some form of combining in that, right? Then you've got the deceased person that has been pumped with drugs or has been on medication most of their life. So there's medicine and chemical that really shouldn't be, expelling out of anyone. What else is there? The nameplate, if it's timber, once again, could be treated pine, could be like. Then you've got the burial site, and the one that we had done just recently was in an area that 20 years ago was made up of milk bottles, and it was like landfill rubbish. 2 meters of landfill rubbish. How is that natural? So if you're thinking of natural burials, there's natural ways, there's other ways of being able to do that. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your view on, I don't think they're doing it in Australia, but there's things going around like composting people.
I actually have seen a funeral home on TikTok over in the States who do
it's like a big
composting. Yeah,
big barrel or something.
Yeah. I think that it's a very interesting take. Personally, I wouldn't want that to happen to me or any of my loved ones. But I think that it's a new take on an environmentally friendly funeral.
So they put obviously
it's almost like a substrate in the bottom,
Right.
and then you place the deceased in there. They do put belongings in, which I think sort of defeats the purpose of like a
So
natural.
do they heat this thing up, or is it just?
No, they pretty much just sit in this. They just sit in this big. It's like, you know what it reminds me of? You know what they got transported in Madagascar, the big timber.
Oh yeah.
That's
yeah.
what they're like. I don't.
Ah,
And they sit on a substrate and they they get covered, and they have some belongings, some flowers put in.
so you
there.
don't put, you don't bring buckets of fruit and veg. It's like, I got some leftovers. I'll just put. Or do they?
I mean, sometimes
they?
they might. I mean, they're putting flowers in there. I don't see why
Yeah.
not.
We'll
But
just sweep up the floor and put it on Grandad.
yeah. And then they
wow.
just sit in these big boxes. It's very
Is it-
interesting.
All I picture is, when people have got their compost bins and then they turn them over every few weeks.
It's
like
pretty
it's
much
pretty
exactly
much like that.
Yeah.
So what do they get at the end? Do you know what they get at the end?
I've never watched that far.
Yeah. Because obviously then there would have to be like bones not going to fully break down. So obviously the other part of them, their skin and organs and all that type of stuff is going to be what they're going to get. So yeah, I wonder if they must crush the bones, and so they get something back. So they might get 10 bags of potting mix
Yeah.
plus
A bag of bones.
a bag of bones that's crushed like cremated remains, basically.
Yeah.
So it certainly is. It certainly is another option. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, because aquamation in Australia, there's only one place I know in New South Wales that does it, but I don't know. It might be 20, 30 years before they even start thinking of that. And the reason for that, I think, is because is public say. People don't like a lot of change.
Yeah.
Governments might say, hey, we're going to bring in the composting, bring Grandad down to the landfill, and we've got a compost section over here. But yeah, it would take a bit. Imagine if you had hundreds of bodies doing that, you'd have to have a huge space. But good option, yeah. We just find it weird.
We do. But the crates, I guess we'll call them, they are
Sorry.
they are quite large. They're probably about the size of the exhumation box downstairs. So they're pretty big.
Yeah. I just, it's different. Certainly is different. But it's, once again, we, when we come into society, we know there's burial and there's cremation. You imagine when they first came out, people saying, you can't put a body into the earth. You can't do that. Or what do you mean you're cremating someone, you're burning someone? You can't do that. But now it's like burial or cremation and aquamation.
Yeah.
But the Americans do things on the grander scale. They tend to be, I guess, the forefront. They're the ones that go, we're going to do something really different here, and we're going to do this. And good on them. Good on them. Wow. Yeah. Actually, I might look that up. And I guess everyone else out there too that's listening, that might be something that you might want to look up too. Might be a better option than the standard chemical natural burials that we do here in Australia. One of the other big questions, and we may have covered this on other podcasts, but do coffins get cremated? Do they?
Yes.
You sure?
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
Taking them to the creme.
Now, I know in Victoria, and I'm only going by Victoria because that's what we're governed by, is that a person must be cremated in a reciprocal of some kind. They're actually meant to have plastic lining that is meant to be part and parcel of that. And that was a direction from the health department. Reason for that is if there's any liquid or anything that was to expel from that body, that it's then not seeping through the timber or whatever item that you're using, and then getting on top of everyone else. And so that was the general rule.
Yep.
I don't know if that still is the rule, but I know that every coffin that we use, unless it's natural, would certainly have a plastic lining.
Yep.
Because, I wouldn't want, I mean, the body does some strange things. So you used to deal with, I don't know how you use it. Is it rent a coffin, rent a topper,
rental casket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that work?
So we had our basic coffins, so our chipboard coffins.
So unpolished.
Unpolished. They're
Yeah.
just pretty much just chipboard coffins.
Yeah.
And they would be used as inserts into this big rosewood American casket that we had.
Yeah.
And so we'd put the deceased into the chipboard coffin.
Yeah.
And we'd open up the back door of the casket and slide them in there. And then on the service,
Does that have rollers inside of it?
Yep,
Yeah,
had rollers
okay.
inside it.
Wow.
And then on the service we had the big rosewood casket.
So can you take that in a hearse and then drive it somewhere else, or is it purely and solely just in,
So it
in
was
chapel?
it was just for like the on-site chapel because
Right.
of the sheer weight of it. It was
Yeah.
very, very heavy. But I know that before I started there, they used to take it out on services.
Yeah.
They stopped doing that for OH&S.
Yeah. Wow. So was that? So you didn't? Did you see many of that?
Oh, all the time, because it was a more affordable option.
Yeah. What's your opinion of it?
I think that it's a good option for people who can't necessarily afford a coffin or a casket, but they still want to have, I don't want to say a nice send off, because if you put somebody just in a basic coffin for a funeral, that's not a bad.
Oh no,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But for
definitely.
somebody who wants the look of a casket without having to buy a casket,
Yeah.
because they are very expensive.
Yeah.
They can be very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So
Look, I think the chipboard option is good, but on the other side too is there is other either, I call them lower ender glossy coffins or matte finish coffins, but a lot of the time, I guess having like a grander looking item, and not having to spend an arm and a leg for it.
Yep.
But I know that the coffins that we have here, I would be happy to put my loved one into that, even if it was they didn't want the MDF or the chipboard coffins. They can then go certainly a matte finish coffin, or even if I use the word seconds, or there might be a little nudge on one that they can use. But I've never seen a rent-a-topper or rent-a-casket, only because that obviously it's all been in house. But it is certainly a different option for people.
yeah,
But all coffins, all caskets do get 100% cremated. The only thing that doesn't get cremated is if you had big, chunky metal straight bar handles on it, or anything that's just not going to cremate. We use a high, what do you call it? Like a high quality plastic handle that will just obviously cremate, because cremation's anywhere between 800 to 1200 degrees. So anything metal will be braked out and sorted from there. So because a lot of people just think, oh, you're going to reuse that coffin though, so why am I paying X, Y, Z for that? And it's like, no. Once your loved one is in it, and I know I can say 100% on our side that is exactly what happens.
Yep.
Once that person lays in that coffin, that is their forever stay.
yeah,
We were just talking before we went on air too about can anyone get buried in their backyard? Is that something that can happen? And my classic answer to that was, long as you don't tell anyone. No. And I'm not saying that you need to go out and do that. So please, disclaimer, I'm not saying that you need to do that. But I think the only thing that it stipulates is if the council, and you have a huge block of land, like we're not talking just a local residential house, but you'd need to be on a big property.
Like an acreage.
Yeah, a big property that has no outlook to be used as a road or, a new town's going to be coming through. But I think we've got, actually, now that I think about it, we have a suburb here called Oakley, and down near the main street in Oakley, have you seen that? They've got like an old car park, and ahead of it
is a not fenced, by the way, a not fenced little cemetery.
Yeah, little graveyard. Now, I had to do double take many moons ago, but I'm thinking, I swore I just saw grave tops, like
like headstones.
Yeah, the headstones. And I'm like, nah, that can't be it, because there's cars in there.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, what?
So right next to the car park.
I don't know, oh, where are you parked? Oh, in front of Mr. Brown. Yeah, I don't know why or how, but that is the same.
Yeah,
they can't move them. Mm-mm. Well, they can move them, but then they have to reinter them somewhere else. But maybe down the track it will happen. But so, and I guess it's like exhumations. The health department would be involved. The government would need to be involved. So for you to be buried anywhere other than a cemetery that's a trust or you would need to have very special permissions. But I don't think it's just granted. Yeah. But big property, like if you were, I don't know, 2,000 kilometres away from anyone, you're in the middle of nowhere, that's probably likely that nothing's ever going to go out that way.
Yep.
You probably could, but it would have to be documented, obviously.
Of course.
You would have seen over your time different options in regards to cremated remains. What are some of those options that people can do? Is there a right or wrong with what we can do?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong.
So
there's definitely rules or laws in place as to where you can scatter people if you'd like to scatter ashes.
So can I just take Mum down the end of the Frankston Pier and flop her over the side there?
As long as no one's watching.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not something that you're going to do when you got a beach full of people, and make sure that you do it downwind. Don't do it towards you. And I have seen it that has come back in front of someone, and they said that it was quite gritty.
That's
it's not. Now, just to put it there, this gentleman he was a bit of a, if I use the word know-it-all, he was a bit of a I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And the family kept on saying, well, don't, that's, listen to Chris, what he's saying. He's, because we went down there, we're doing like a little committal down there. And I said, the wind is really fierce and it's coming towards us. So, with some jetties or whatever, they've got there's a couple of little stairs that go sort of under the jetty, for more of not the bigger boats, but the smaller boats.
Yeah.
I said, why don't we go down there? Because in that way it was sort of protected a bit. No. Mum would want to go straight out here. And I went, all right, family, you go downstairs. And he opened up the cremated remains. It makes me laugh every time. And he flung the ash just out. And it came back, and he was wearing a white shirt, like a greyish type suit, and it came and hit him hard. Mum was all over him, and and eyes open, mouth open. He got his fair share. Now, I feel for the family, but they pissed themselves laughing, to be honest. They really, yeah. But he never said much after that.
I can imagine he wouldn't have.
Because, yeah, I think his plan obviously didn't work and didn't listen to mine. Then you just get what you get. That's it. So, okay, so they're scattering. Yeah. What else? What else can you do with them?
I have decanted ashes into one of those big, I cannot tell you what they're made out of, the big shells. You decant the ashes into them and then you drop it in the ocean and they degrade in there.
Degrade, yeah. Because I think you can get turtle ones as well. So you can get the shell, turtle. I think there was,
Like a sea star one.
And one of my old schoolmates, his dad, I think, went into one that was more like a wreath, and you were able to put like some flowers in the top of that. But in obviously underneath all of that was the ash in there. And he loved boating. It was off on the Gold Coast, so he loved boating. So they went out to his favourite location, and then they obviously had a bit of a cry and things like that, and then released him. And it was so good. It was just so good. The different options of what you can have now for that, you know. I don't know, and I think it brings a little bit more personal approach to it than just opening up the box and you know.
I think I'd like that.
Yeah.
Like to be dropped into the Great Barrier Reef. Not sure if you can drop in the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah. The other one that and I don't know if they do much of it now, was the like air burials. So what I mean by that is they take the cremated remains up. It'd be someone in a Cessna plane, single engine, and then they'd have like this little chute that they'd put the cremated remains in, and as they're flying over that person's favourite location, they would then distribute the ash out. My head automatically goes to a comedy scene of people whining and dining down below.
Oh, no.
And getting covered in Mr. Brown. But I don't know if they do that anymore. Because that used to be quite good.
I heard this joke years ago, and it's something that and now that I work in the funeral industry, people say this to me all the time, wanting to be put into salt and pepper shakers.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's morbid, but it's very funny. And sometimes when people are like, oh, we might do this or we might do that, I have to stop myself from suggesting it.
Oh, no. How about that? The other one is I have seen is cremated remains going up in a firework. I know it's different, but put your granny into a firecracker, like a company that does it, and then you organise like a get together with your family one night, and you go into an area that's all permitted, and then you let granny get fired up with up in the sky. I've heard people say, "Oh, just put me up in the sky like a firecracker." Well, that's literally putting you up in the sky as a firecracker. I don't know if that's something I would do, but it looked really good.
So Darwin has got this thing, or the Northern Territory has got this thing called Territory Day. And basically we call it Cracker Night, and everybody in the street goes out and you buy your own firecrackers and you let them out in your street, right? I'm not sure why they still do this. People have had limbs blown off. And
far out.
Very dangerous. But now I'm wondering how many people have been in those firecrackers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be I wouldn't think it would be hard as long as you mix the cremated remains with the Bernie stuff. I nearly said gunpowder, but whatever that Bernie stuff is, to go up. Yeah, but people just I mean it's different. The air one's different. The other one that used to be really nice was I think it was every 6 months, any ashes that people wanted to be put out into Port Phillip Bay, but, didn't want to just go out there and do it themselves. You'd have a couple of family members for each of those cremated remains that were allowed to go on the Endeavour, or whatever the one is in the city, and you'd go for this cruise on the outside, and then they would do a complete ceremony to release these ashes to Port Phillip. And when you think about people in old uniform, like old soldier type uniform, and the release and the sails, and wow.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky to go on one of those trips many, many moons ago, and I missed it. Like it was, yeah. I don't know why. I don't know if that boat's still around, but it's certainly an option.
And that sounds really, really lovely.
Or you get those ones where they're the Navy. Like they're sometimes the old Navy ships used to take them out, and they do a ceremony out there. They used to do it out of Cerberus.
Cerberus.
That one. But they used to just go on a little runabout and go out there and do it. And that's beautiful too, because especially if they've served in the war, or they've been in the Navy and they've done all of this. And but there's all sorts of different things you can do with your ashes. You can bury them under rose trees at home. You can place them into a rock. You can turn them into jewellery.
Yep.
I was getting, Jess, she, which is one of our staff members, she actually got her dog placed into a ring, or around a ring. I gave some of my mum's cremated remains, and I'm waiting on that ring to come back. Doesn't look like it's cremated remains, but it's symbolic for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if many people are turning their loved ones into diamonds, or you've heard of that?
I have. It was something that I was sort of like, oh, that might be nice if I used a little bit of my dog's ash. Very expensive for a dog, but she's not dead yet. She's still alive. But then I was told that it takes years, and I was like, oh.
No. But certainly the cremated remains might go into some resin or something and then blended. But yeah, I think that's something that's a nice way. I'm not like, oh, what's a beautiful diamond? It's mum. I don't know. I think that's just me.
That's fair.
I don't know if that's.
I think that
I lost mum. Where's she gone? You can't. Where is she gone?
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Yeah, someone stole my mum.
There's a lot more that you can do with cremated. Cremated. No, that is right. Cremated
remains. Yeah.
Remains. CRs.
Wow.
There's a lot more you can do with ashes than you can with bodies.
I think we'll just crack open a tinny there. There you go. Have a drink.
Thank you very much. I don't think I need any more. But I think that going down the path of cremation could be a lot. It could be a nice alternative to burying somebody in your backyard, because you can't bury a body in your backyard legally.
No.
But you can bury cremated remains.
Yeah. My
nan and pop are buried under this beautiful tree, this big, huge oak tree, in a vineyard in the Coonawarra Wine Estate. Because that's where my granddad, he used to take care of the vineyard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when they passed away, their ashes were interred there, and they've got a beautiful plaque and this little sort of glass box around it with a couple of little mementos, and it's very, very nice. But I think that that's a nice alternative to burying somebody.
Yeah, my deceased uncle, I never really got to meet him, but We were brought up, I was born in Katoomba. Now I'll go to Katoomba in New South Wales. And there's a great big council park down the end of Katoomba Street. And he's under a big oak tree. But when his ashes, and he's got a plaque on it and all sorts of things. But when they first did it, it was just this little stick, like this little branch. But this tree is, oh my God, it is huge. But I often think about it, and I really want to go and see it before anything ever happens to it. And the only thing that I say about anything happened to it would be if the council decided, you know what, we're now going to continue the road through.
Yeah.
But I mean, what am I to say? 47. Say he probably would have gone 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I think it was about 50 years ago. So that's a tree of 50 years or 50 plus years. You know, if his ashes were placed in there in a container, I think they'll still be there, or maybe the roots have gone through it. But you know, to have to pull that up would be such a disappointing thing, or something happen like get struck by lightning, or you know, someone kills the tree for whatever reason. You know how sometimes there's people that's like, oh, that tree's too much bushes over on my side, and you know, but yeah, so many different things you can do. You don't always have to place your loved one into a cemetery.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
You just need to know, and anything's really possible, unless it's illegal. Then you know, think twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot today. I think it's that's been pretty fantastic. So I hope for those people that have been listening, you know, you've enjoyed our episode today, and a big thank you to Annie for joining us, and no doubt you will hear more of Annie over the time. And for those that are listening to us in doing gym or going for a walk, going to work, whatever you're doing, thank you so much for taking the time. Don't forget, we're on social media. We're on TikTok, Bremba Family Funerals, Facebook and Insta. Yeah, we do lives every Sunday. Sundays with Bremba. Let's chat about death. All right, guys, take care, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.